Have you ever thought about it? I mean, really, what is the purpose to life? Why are we here? Where did we come from? For that matter, where are we going to go when this life is over? In this seminar that talks about the age of the Earth, Dr. Hovind gives solid evidence to show that this Earth is not billions of years old. In fact, the evidence points towards a literal 6-day creation, like told about in Genesis chapter 1. Hi, my name is Aaron, and we hope you enjoy this incredibly powerful seminar presented by Dr. Hovind.
We have Jared on the phone. Yes, Jared, sorry about the delay. Go ahead there.
That's okay, Ken. Do you have a guest on today right now?
I have several guests here in the studio with me, but I don't have one on the phone. We only have one line coming into our studio.
Right. Okay.
But go ahead.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to say just before we get started was you were talking about like Polystrata fossils, or however you would pronounce the polystrates.
Correct. Petrified trees that are perpendicular, standing up, running through multiple layers.
Right.
Quite a few pictures on my website if the listeners want to go there. Go to Dr. Dino. Go to, what is it, articles, Jonathan? Yeah. First they click on science, right?
Yeah, they got to go to science and articles, polystrate
science,
fossils.
and then articles, and then polystrate fossils. So they can look at the pictures themselves. Okay, go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, I looked into that because you and a few of the people had raised that topic before. And it seems like there's pretty much a healthy rebuttal to this on the Internet. Like if you Google this problem, the first things you'll hit are talk origins and stuff like that, rebutting your claims. Have you read through these?
No, just a minute. I taught science 15 years, and I've seen students write articles that were, just because they talk a lot doesn't mean they have an answer.
That's true.
I've seen people who can give what's called the snow job in school, they write a 10-page paper and know nothing about what they're saying. So they think just because they talked, therefore they answered.
Well, apparently this is geologist system, not just...
Oh, well, if it's a geologist, well, then it's even worse, okay? But go ahead.
Well, I mean, you keep acting like there's just, like this is just like this flabbergasted evolutionist or the geologist or anybody who believes in like old age of the Earth, and yet this has been mocked like for a long time. Like when I read about the responses to your claims, they weren't your claims specifically. I don't think they were responding to people who actually first used the polystrate fossil. But
can you summarize it? What do they say about it? I've not seen Talk Origins.
I'm not going to try to summarize the argument. All I'm trying to point out is that it has been. This has been responded to, like scientifically. It's not just like some big mystery that's totally stumping the evolutionists. This is old news. This is like 19th century news.
I would like to hear the response, and surely you can summarize it. How can they explain, like in Cookeville, Tennessee, where they have a 30-foot tall tree running through 2 seams of coal and 20-some feet of sediment between the seams of coal? Each end of the tree is coalified. The center is petrified. And yet they teach the kids it takes thousands of years for coal to form as a swamp slowly turns to peat bogs and gets buried by sediment. How can both ends of the same tree be coalified?
I don't know. I know that this has been responded to by geologists. I mean, you can't honestly act like this is just a total mystery that the evolutionists are ignoring. That is not the case. I am not a scientist that deals with that kind of stuff, so I can't respond to you specifically, but I know that the response exists.
Well, then why did you just called in to tell me there's a response? Well, I'm sure there's a response.
Have you read those responses?
I've read the responses to other things. I haven't read. That's why, Jonathan, if you can check out Talk Origins, what do they say about these petrified trees in the vertical position?
Actually, I saw that article once in the past. I don't remember everything, so I will bring it up right now and look at it again.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't all I wanted to talk about, though. I actually wanted to talk about evolutionary theory in general.
Okay.
So I just I kind of want to respond to this basic problem that it's like you have when you talk about evolutionary. It seems like you equivocate with terms like "come from." Like whenever you refer to God, talking about animals, say things like animals will bring forth after their kind.
That's what the Bible says. Right, 10 times. It says that in Genesis chapter 1.
Sure. Okay. And bring forth after is a very important part of this, right? You always criticize evolutionary theories being against Genesis, which I think it is, but maybe for a slightly different reason. Because you say that evolutionists claim that, say, dogs came from non-dogs, so that some kind of animal that was non-dog brought forth something that was not dog.
That's what you believe, isn't it?
I don't know what I believe. This is pretty much irrelevant to what I believe.
Okay, go ahead.
You could call me a representative of evolutionary theory if you want for the time being, but it doesn't matter what I personally think is right. The evolutionists themselves, I don't think, would disagree with the basic premise here that animals of a certain kind will produce animals of that kind. It's just that what the kind is changes over time. And I think this needs to be pointed out because it seems like most people that aren't scientists and who are just kind of listening to you on kind of a more informal level aren't going to catch this distinction. And so it makes your counter-arguments seem more plausible, I think.
Wait, let me translate that for the audio. I understand today.
No, I'm not saying that.
Back after the break, something about that. Welcome back, folks, in just a minute. All right, folks, welcome back to the final segment of the Creation Science Hour this May 17th of 2005. This is Kent Hovind and Jonathan Sampson and our Canadian guests down here who are starting who've been doing a ministry for some years on creation. And let's see, Jared's on the phone. What did I miss, Jared? Because it seemed to me like you were implying that if people don't believe like you believe, that they are dumb or lower IQ or less educated. Did I miss them?
No, not at all. I think you did. What I was trying to say is that the kind of language that you use could be slightly deceiving for somebody who's not used to the language of evolutionary theory. When you say that the Bible says animals shall bring forth after their kind, and evolutionists say that long ago and far away this and this happened, that's not being quite consistent with the way that we use our language.
Yeah, you're saying that what is a kind may have changed. So, like, if a dog came from, say, an amoeba, then the early amoeba would be called dog.
Now, what does it mean when you say came from? What's the full extent of how you're going to use that
phrase? Descended from is the daughter or son of.
Descended from. Now, descended from is a very different thing.
Came from, descended from. My 3 children came from my wife and I. What am I missing on this here?
Okay, so it's one thing to say that one type of animal or one kind of animal will never descend from another type, and to say that one will not bring forth after their kind. These are different things. Evolutionary theory is concerned with descent.
Correct.
Right. I'm just trying to clear up the language because you keep using this kind of trickery, I think.
Well, let me ask you this then. Do you believe that the dog descended from something that was single-celled, such as an amoeba?
I think that is the best scientific theory that we currently have.
Okay. Well, you're welcome to believe that, but there's no evidence of that.
Well, I think there's plenty of evidence for it. I don't think it's not the kind of evidence that we use like in astronomy or chemistry, but the evidence is pretty compelling. It's certainly more compelling than anything that I've been able to find in creation science or intelligent design theory.
Yeah, you told me all that before in previous programs, and I know, I don't know why it's more compelling to you.
Here's an example. Okay, are you familiar with the idea of endogenous retroviruses?
I didn't understand that. Retroviruses?
Endogenous retroviruses.
Okay.
Particular type of viral infection. I think that I've heard you debate this with somebody else before, but
sure.
It sounded like you weren't that familiar with it. Maybe you are now. I don't know. But basically, it's a virus that inserts itself into the genome of an organism as it's conceiving, and it's a remnant of a past infection. The insertion point into the nucleotide site in the genome is random, as far as we know. It's inherited genetically. So if a parent has this retroviral infection in its genome, it will pass it on to any offspring that they have, right?
Okay.
The human genome has been fully sequenced, and we've discovered, I think, roughly 30,000 ERVs.
Then wait, let me back up. I want to understand this here. Is this virus doing something good for this species?
It's actually doing nothing at all. It's just dead DNA. The bits of information that tell the nucleus of the cell to actually generate amino acids based on the code is not there, and so it just gets skipped over. It gets copied in a copying mechanism, but it never gets utilized for any kind of encoding.
So kind of like the national debt gets handed down generation after generation, nobody ever does anything about it.
That's a very rough analogy.
Okay.
It's junk DNA. It doesn't code any proteins. It's just there.
Well, I would say you can't just say it does nothing because it requires energy from the body to make the copy and to carry this copy around.
Right.
So carrying junk is negative, not neutral.
Yeah, it's baggage. Your body has to expend energy to keep copying it, and to hold it, like the teaspoon of it that you have or whatever. But
right. So it's counterproductive.